Most people live their whole life waiting to feel like the person they want to become. The truth is, identity isn't discovered, it's built through repetition. Welcome back to the Newstrength Way podcast. We've got Jess here with us today, and we're talking about shaping your identity and mindset for real lasting change. And the key piece here that we're looking at is like the be, do, have framework. So, Jess, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be back on.
So I guess like the first piece that we're going to dive right into today is essentially this framework of what we see a lot of people in general, and it is, I guess it's a little bit of like the way that we're wired psychologically is typically we think of it in reverse order. So we think of like when I have this thing that I'm after, then I'll do the things to get to where I want to go. So if we think about that, like a lot of people is like, oh, I don't have any motivation to exercise. So they think of like, okay, when I'm motivated, I will start training so I can have the body and feel healthy and be a healthy person. When in reality, what we see a lot of the change that needs to happen is like, I'm going to be a healthy person. This is where I'm becoming. This is what I want to do. And what I do say is like, I stick to my promises. I stick to my word. If I say I'm going to the gym, I'm going to go to the gym. So they become the person and they step into that identity first so that they do the things and then they'll have the result at the end. And that's really the flip that we're looking at today. Jess, obviously you've done a lot of work in the mindset space, like our identity-based habits, our ACTs. What do we see the stories are that people are telling themselves before they get started in their journey, but that stop them from actually taking action towards becoming the person they want to become?
The stories that we tell ourselves, we want to get to a place when we can actually realize that, is this story my story? So most of the time in childhood, we're growing up, we're learning about who we need to be in order to be loved and accepted, to have belonging and to feel successful. So often we're going to be adopting the belief systems and the stories of other people based off what they've said about us. So already who we are, how we feel, what we believe in is external to us. It's not inward built. So this is where it comes into that framework you mentioned at the start of this episode, is that we find ourselves in this position where we think what we want is outside of us, when actually it's already available inside of us in the very beginning. But no one is teaching you that. And I'm in a place with my mindset journey where I realize, and I have learnt the skills and the powerful magic that's available for us, is that we actually need both. We need to be able to build validation and success in the external world, but not wholly or solely rely just on that to support who we are as a person, or use that to dictate how we show up and how we extract meaning and fulfillment from our life. We actually need to do the inner work at the same time. Both skill sets need to exist. We need to do the inner work, which means recreating our stories, recreating our beliefs, taking ownership of our actions and our behaviors, and making our inner mind a garden that flourishes and thrives, and our heart as a place that we love to be. So if our inner world feels nice and safe, we can then more freely and flexibly and sustainably live in the external world using both inner and external validation.
That's the end of the podcast, guys. Jess has nailed it. We are done. See you next week.
That is the missing skill, is not realizing. I think what happens when we look at these sort of soft skills and mindset as black or white, like I'm missing this skill, that skill's wrong, and I need that skill instead. It's actually not that at all. You actually need both. So external validation cops lots of flack. It cops lots of judgment. But actually, if you look back, and again, unless you're like working in this field, you don't really learn it. We are pack animals. In order for us to survive from an evolutionary perspective, we need people around us. We need them to tell us that we're safe. We need them to validate that we're a good person. We need them to say, like, you belong here. So that's external validation back in the day. Obviously now we're looking at social media. We're looking at numbers on a fucking scale. Like, we're looking at our achievements and what we have that represent us as a person in our life. If we just rely solely on that, though, obviously it doesn't set us up for great success. The reason being is that if you lose your job, if your relationship breaks down, then how are you left feeling?
And then I think that showcases like how this fits into this framework as well, because these are all things that are haves. Like these are, if I have this, like, and we're in the Money podcast studio right now. Shout out to Glenn and the team here. But there's one that really pops up as like, oh, I'll be good at money when, like, I'll be good at saving when I have money. But it's like, well, if you don't actually start doing the actions to save, then you'll never actually have that there. So it's like, if you start to identify as like, I am going to be good with money, then you start to do the things like, I'm going to put away a little bit each week. And that's where, like, you see really common in those spaces, like somebody's like, even if you're just putting $1 a week or $2 a week into an account, it then compounds because you're like, well, I have been saving every week. I'm actually way better at saving for our kids' accounts than I am saving in my own account. But it's like, I'm really great at saving for my kids' accounts because I just put it in there and I can't take it out. In mine, I'm like, hey, I'd like a new bike. But then it's like, well, then you start to have the end result of it there because you've identified that you're good at that, like you are that thing. And I think that's really what you've dialed in on there. It's like when it's like, because of the external validation and all those pieces that come alongside it there, is like you start to hang on the haves as opposed to the be. And then you see this a lot in like millionaires and billionaires. And it's like, what would you do if you like, if all your money disappeared tomorrow? No, just do it again. And it's like there's confidence there because they've done it. Like they identify with they have millionaire habits, and it translates in training. It's like fit person habits or healthy person habits, because that's who they identify with. So it's like, well, if you took somebody like Nate's shredded up at the moment and got 17,000 abs going on, if you just like packed on 30 kilos of body fat on him and then just went, look, you got to start again, he wouldn't then go to shit. He'd just do the exact same things that he's doing now because that's the person that he is. And then alongside that is like, what does that person do? Well, that person keeps in track of their calories and they train consistently and do those things. And then eventually they have the six-pack abs.
Yeah. And just to jump in here, that what you're describing here, just for our listeners, is that's an example of the inner work. So what will happen is our brain will focus, particularly if you're logically wired, and perhaps you look more for like tactical measurements and logical decision making and things like that. If your brain is wired like that, the reason why that would work so well for someone with a brain that works like that is because there's so much evidence. So then when the evidence is there from the actions you've taken every day, instead of going, I'll be happy when, or I'll have that when I have this, you're just chipping away at those actions every single day. That part of your brain goes, here's all the evidence in our backlogs that shows that we are taking action towards the goals and we can have shit every single day. It's available to us every single day. So then the fear of losing something is less. Because you've got all this evidence backed up in the files of your brain that show you that we've been there, we took these actions that got X results, boom, there's certainty for you. And our brain psychologically needs certainty in everything that we do, certainty and control. So the fear of losing things becomes less, which means we're less externally controlled by the outcome or the circumstance, the person, the object, the goal, and we're more fulfilled in the internal journey because the evidence is available in our backlogs, if that makes sense.
That's exactly like, so let's move into the tactical piece here, Jess. So let's not just hang on the concepts. Let's talk about how do we build those concepts with people. And one of the first pieces here, and this is a great piece, so like shout out to our coaches, the guys at Geronimo, Dozer. Like Nathan and I just got back from Hawaii recently, and one of the big things that like you'd think when you go over to a business retreat there, it's going to be all tactical. It's all going to be like, oh, here's this ad campaign, here's this thing. Like this is what traditionally is there. What we did was we spoke for 3 days on like vision achievement roadmaps. Like there was a little bit of tactical stuff, but overall it was like, how do we craft a vision that one you're excited to go towards, and then you can build out everything else off the back end of. It's like, where do we want to go? Who do we want to be as a business? And then off the back end of that, like what actions need to happen? Like what are our daily non-negotiables to move towards that so we can have the thing at the end of it there. And that's one of the key pieces here. So the first piece when we do start to shape this up is like, who are we becoming? What's that identity that we're building towards here? What values matter to us in that there because of where we want to go? And if you're in the gym, your aim is you want to be healthy in comfortable in your own skin, or you want to deadlift 300 kilos or whatever that is. It's like who that identity is. It's like, I am strong, I am confident, I feel like healthy, happy, those pieces there. And then it's like, what values is like, well, if I say I'm going to do something, then I do it. Like I'm 100% say do. I don't go back on my word. Like even this morning, like in complete transparency, like I told Nate that I was going to be there at the gym at 4 a.m. and I set my alarm for the wrong time. I actually got up, and it's a funny little story. that I was like, geez, like we've obviously been away. So getting up and I was like, it's very bright. Like this has changed very quickly, like 4 a.m. and it's already partially daytime outside. This is crazy. And then I walked outside and I quickly checked my watch and went, oh shit, it's 5 a.m. and I've left Nath at the gym. Like, and like that burned me because I'm the person that I'm saying that like, if I tell you that I'm going to be at the gym at 4 a.m., I will be at the gym at 4 a.m.
It burnt you because there was a values conflict.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And these are the things that you want to be building up. It's like, how do we then create the things that we want to go towards are based on the values that we have? And what are the things that we need to step into and lean into for those things? Like what are some of those ones that we do see pop up as a consistency for like people in the gym, Jess? Like what are some of those like the identities that they're shifting towards?
Yeah, that's a great question in terms of identifying in the gym. How I want to answer this question, first of all, when we think about identity, there's a bit of background that I really do feel is important to share. We can discover our identities through I am statements. So for any listeners on this podcast, when you leave this podcast, what would be the most valuable step for you to get clear on this is to write that question down and start catching yourself every time you say I am. I am a procrastinator. I am an intellectual. I am a strong mum. So anything with the letters or the words I am in front of it, help you discover the label that you hold or the identity you hold to be true about yourself. So that's the first thing. First step is you need to be able to identify your identity. I am this. When you moved on and you spoke about values, the reason why the values is what matters most or what's important to me and why that would work so well in Geronimo is it because even if you are a logically driven person and you think more on the logical side of your brain, values create meaning. And whenever we have meaning, we have emotions. So two sides of the brain, limbic system, right, and the neocortex. Limbic is responsible for emotions. Neo is responsible for logic. So more often than not, our reactions, heated arguments in the moment are all driven from the limbic system. Anything that emotionally fuels you up is coming from the limbic system, so the emotional side of the brain. Anything where you're calm and you give yourself a moment to pause in response, to think and be curious, that's more logical based. So I think that was important to clarify there. So when we come to values, it's meaning, and any time we have something that brings us meaning, we're being motivated by emotion, and it's helpful emotion. It's forward momentum. It's pleasurable. So that's why values are such a workable tool when it comes to building identity, because they are fueled by our emotion in a helpful, forward-moving way. Not many of us are thinking that though. So just so you know, if you are someone who acts in alignment with their values, even if it's not every day, when you recognize that you did do something that was in alignment with your value, you'll feel good about it because there are helpful emotions behind that. And so coming back to your original question.
Yeah. Like we're going to hold on for a second here. We're holding on for a second here. That was some fucking fire. Guys, if you're not excited about this off the back and to listen to this, like I'm excited. I'm going to put a little challenge to this here. And you guys probably don't know because you guys sit in your car right now listening into Jess talk about all this stuff. I'm going to say one of the things that like I know from Jess from over the many years that we've been together is
17, just for the FYI. 17 years we've been together.
Longest engagement without
we're still not
marriage
married
yet, but that is on the achievement roadmap for next year. So I haven't actually told you this yet.
Oh,
it's
that's
on
so cool.
It has to be booked. So
I love it.
What I'm going to stop and hold on for a second is one of the things that Jess has personally pulled up as like one of the identities that she's attached to that's not serving her is that I'm not very smart. Like, if you guys listen to that fucking 2 minutes just there or whatever that was, I know that you'll be 100% with me that she's an absolute genius and she's a weapon when it comes to this stuff and she knows her shit. And I think that's one of the cases, like we talk about is like when you've got those things, you have to fucking lean into it, right? And I'm fired up right now. I'm getting pumped up about this. This is fucking what we want.
Yes, I love that.
But and this really just sets those frames there. It's like Jess has been somebody who has said, I am not a smart person. But when you look at these things and you look at the evidence of like what she's just talked about just there, it's there. All the pieces are there, but she hasn't tweaked that like I am a genius. I'm holding my own. I'm leaning into this stuff that is where I want to invest my time, my energy, and what I do understand. And like that's one of the key things. And like Jess will tell you that's like she thinks that she's not smart because she's not a human calculator like this guy.
Yeah, I'll compare myself to Jacob often about my intelligence.
But you don't need to be a human calculator when you're looking at these things. Like that's the power in what she just said. So I want to just hold on that for a second. So you guys listening at home just understand as like one, the genius that you guys do have in the gym if you are at Newstrength of like in terms of this shaping your identity, your mindset of like what you do have with Jess and what you have access to. Strategy sessions, this is number one that you guys are going to go through. This is the perfect time to go and bail her up. And then also, if you guys are listening to this and you want to hear more of this shit, shoot us either a message or grab her in the gym and go, shake her. I need to see this in a workshop. I need you to take me through this shit, Jess. Let's do it. So I want to just hold on that before we get back into the piece there of going like, how you perceive that to be sometimes isn't always going to be the reality. And sometimes you do need somebody externally to help you either break down that belief that you might have been hanging on to for a while because the evidence might actually show the opposite, but you might not want to see it. And sometimes it might be that you need somebody else to help show you where the truth really is,
or
not
help
the truth that you're...
extract it out.
Yeah. Help you see the evidence of the truth that's really there. And hopefully this is one for Jess that she'll walk away from this being like, actually, you know what? I am a fucking genius. I am a boss.
Before you move on, because you've actually highlighted a theme in here that I was going to add on to the identity piece, right? So going back to a previous mindset episode that we did a couple of weeks ago before we went to Hawaii, we spoke about fixed mindset versus growth. So there you go. I've got a belief. The belief is I am not smart. That's an identity I was operating from that stemmed from a fixed mindset. And so whilst I recognize that I still can buy into that limiting story of like, I'm not a smart person, a big part of my reality and the life that I live right now has actually been in pursuit of a growth mindset perspective of, well, where else can I be smart? What else does smart look like? How else could I shape what being smart means to me in my life, how I want it to be? So I made it my mission to go out and be smart in meaningful life skills, well-being skills, people skills, behavior change mindset skills. So no, even though I recognize that fixed limiting belief, I actually transformed that and liberated it into something that was self-serving. And now here I am delivering all these amazing life, human, well-being, meaningful life skills.
All right. So we're going to get back on track, guys. I'm a tangent guy. This is obviously why I'm sitting here because I just distract us all and jump over to different things. Lucky Lily's not here yet to sidebar me and tell me, stay on course, Jacob. I do need that. I do need that though. But so our second layer there, like obviously we covered the identity piece and like how that influences it. Our second layer is our do. And that comes down to like, what's our actions, what's our habits, what's the reps that we're doing that are going to move us towards the next step. That's our, like in our vision achievement roadmap, this is your daily non-negotiables. This is your daily standards that you live by. And this is like, if anyone's read Atomic Habits, James Clear, this is where you get into is like, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your systems. You fall to the level of your daily non-negotiables and those pieces there. And what we're looking for is we want these actions to create proof, to create evidence. We want it to take away from, obviously, there's meaning and emotion in the be. There's meaning and emotion in where we're going, but on a day-to-day standpoint, you don't want your emotion to influence where you're going right now. You don't want, this thing's just happened, like I got this bad email or whatever it is, and I'm dealing with that there, or my wife's mad at me over this, so I'm not going to go and do these things that are going to help me shape to where I want to go. Like whatever that is there, and so you guys know that's not from personal anecdote. Jess doesn't very rarely gets mad at me, so most of the time I'm in trouble and I get away with it. So it's like not waiting to feel ready. It's not waiting to have the thing before you do the thing. It's doing the thing because it's going to shape the outcome. And this is like when we shape back to, this is like being process orientated instead of goal orientated. Like you setting up your targets around what's going to get to the point as opposed to like, I need to have this thing here. You got anything to add to that, Jess, before we...
Yeah, there were a few core things that popped into my brain as I listened to you explain that. The first thing that I'm going to touch on is the emotional the emotional side. So before we highlighted about, if you're a logically driven person, X, Y, Z, there are also the people who are they sit more in the emotional side of their brain. So the key thing that I want everyone who's listening to this episode to take away from this is whatever situation you're in, whatever perspective you're taking, ask yourself this question. What are the strengths of sitting in this? And also, what are the limitations in this? So I love being in my emotion. I'm 100% pro emotion, and a lot of the time, over a lot of time of practicing, I can manage and control sitting in the helpful, pleasurable emotions and harnessing them to create forward momentum. But every now and then, we are going to sit in that limitation where too much time spent with our emotion moves us away from the person that we want to be, moves us away from relying on our systems, habits, and routines that actually support the person that we want to be. And that's where the emotions are unhelpful. And we can do the same thing and apply that same concept to thoughts. There are thoughts that have strengths and are helpful. There are thoughts that have limitations and are unhelpful. Both of these things can either move us towards the person we want to be, or they will move us away. How we can do our best to manage, because not all the time are we going to be in control of our emotions. We can look at the process-led or the systems and the routines as one of these practical tools that help us to manage and stay more in control of the direction we want to move forward in.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're nailing it. And it's about just setting up, it's not about making 50 actions to do every day. It's what's the ones that you can just bank on that are going to be the simple structures that you can make a system around that you can nail. That's our, the Elevate project earlier on in this year really nailed in on okay, we're making a system, we're making a project and something that you can hang on to as our daily non-negotiables to help you move towards where you want to go. And it wasn't about trying to do everything. It was intensive because that was the purpose of that challenge there. It was okay, this is going to be more than what you're used to during winter when everyone else is quitting. This is going to be taking those next steps and those next actions so that when it gets to summertime and where we are right now, you are going to be the person that you want. You're going to have those things that you wanted to move towards because you're showing up for it now. So that's the key piece there. It's not about overloading yourself. It's putting the simple pieces there that you can make a system around, and then it's okay to have the rest of your day to be in your emotions and feeling those things, and that, because you're human, it's normal. That's what you want. We want that balance of, okay, what's going to be taking us towards the vision that we have ahead of us, but also you still want to be human in the process. It's not about being Elon, microchipped in your brain somewhere.
Yeah, and just to finish that little piece off there, just so I give the listeners something to work with. So when we say, what are the limitations of sitting in this emotion? Think, what's limiting you? What are the consequences for you? That could be avoidance, repression, distraction. It could be disengaging from being with your kids. It could be reaching for unhealthy coping mechanisms and avoidance that take you away from the person you want to be. So that is pain motivating, right? We have to be willing to sit with the pain and take that mirror to ourselves and say, right now, if I don't take action, what are the consequences for me? And then if that doesn't work, or it's not giving you as much of a punch in the face as you might need, you then say, well, what are the limitations involved for my loved ones? What are the limitations for my wife, my husband, my kids? What are the limitations or the consequences to the people around me by not moving towards the person that I need to be and want to be? So that's pain motivating. And then on the flip side, you could move to the pleasure. What happens if I do take this action? What person could I be? And then how is that going to positively impact my kids? How much more love and fulfillment and belonging are they going to feel because I'm engaged rather than disengaged? So that's a little conversation that you can be having with yourself. You can make that practical by writing in a journal or discussing it with a professional that can hold space for you, a mentor, a coach, et cetera, et cetera. Once you've got that self-awareness piece, that's only going to make your systems and processes that much more effective. Because if you feel out of control, you can rely on your systems because they're not emotional at all. They're just there every single day and available to you 24/7. So that could be setting up a gym routine. That could be setting up your week like you guys do, like your Sunday prep. That just sets the whole week up for success. And having a work schedule. For a lot of us, work gives us a lot of functioning because it's a routine where we have to get up, we have to get there on time, we have to go through that whole work process, and then we go home. That is a routine or a habit that's set up for us. That sets us up for better functioning and success long term.
And we're going to wrap this up now because I think Jess has nailed it, and there's so many insights in this already. So we're not going to hang on this for too much longer. But essentially, the result of creating the identity that you want to shift towards, doing those actions, those habits, those reps towards where you want to go, is then having the results that you're after, having the motivation, having the body that you're after out of that there, or the, if you go back to, like we said before, Money, Money, Money podcast, like if that's the when you identify, like when you see yourself as somebody who's good with money and you do the small savings and then you have that house deposit or whatever it is that you're moving towards as the goal, there is all of those things. It's like that's the end result. It's not the first step. If you're hanging on needing that to feel the end point there's always a gap. And if we dive into like really great book that I really love, Gap and the Gain, there is like when you're identifying with like the gap between where you are and where you want to go, and like hanging on that being the piece there, and that often leads you to not feeling very good because you're just always so far away from where you want to go to, versus seeing the gain, like how far you've come, the steps that you're taking, those journeys along the way helps to, one, more fulfillment in there, but two, it drives you to then take those next steps and move your way forward. So I'm not going to hang on this much longer. You guys have just listened to Jess with an absolute masterclass, and I don't think we need to add too much more without then just giving her one mic and then 3 hours to just like drop bombs for the whole time. That is us on the Newstrength Way podcast. Once again, thank you to Jess for coming in and putting together an absolute masterclass. As I said, if you guys want to hear more of this stuff from Jess and you want her to frame up some really, really valuable things, just find her in the gym, shake her, and tell her you want a masterclass. You want a seminar in the gym where she just goes deep on all this shit. So that is us. We'll see you guys next week on another episode of the Newstrength Way. Thank you guys.